Yeah, this talk was scheduled for the morning, but Martin said that God told them it shouldn't be there. So I don't know what happened, that I'm still here. But I want to share some of the story of the Budapest City Network and what we now call Budapest Plus, how it came to life. And you can get it from the title. It's not fast, it's not easy, and it's certainly not a simple success story with neat how to do steps at the end. In fact, I really believe that we are just so small and so much at the beginning. I just sometimes don't know why City to City Europe uses the name of Budapest and so on, because we are just so much at the beginning of all the things. But I think God is really doing things, and so we look in the future with that hope. And maybe some of the story can inspire and encourage those of you who are thinking about gospel movements in your city, when there are more church planting is happening and churches are planting churches and there are churching, renewing, and then when it all starts happening. So in our experience, network building is something like long obedience in the same direction. Let me start with the brief overview of our story, and there was a slide for that. Before that story, around 2000, Albert from Redeemer City to City came to Budapest a couple of times, and something started happening. There were two Reform pastors who got that vision, and they worked a bit with Al and went to New York and started at least one church plant here in Budapest. But there was no church planting fellowship, just individual seeds planted. And as we go to 2010, fast forward, this is the beginning of what we have now. That was a small fellowship of planters. There was one, that time young planter, Andras, just sitting here, who went to the intensive in New York, came back, and started just gathering church planters from the city. There were a couple of plantings going on in Budapest. And so there was this fellowship, this loose fellowship where we prayed together, supported each other, and got to know each other from various churches and various denominations. It was pretty much at the beginning of our story. It was that diversity and unity was there. And then around 2016, inspired by City to City Europe, and we began to ask whether there is more for our city. What does it mean to have a network, not just a few friends coming together and just encourage one another about church planting, but a movement? So we started to shape something more intentional around gospel, city, and movement. And we developed a vision and goals. We had some leaders of that coordinating this work. Many of them are in this room now. And we stayed connected with City to City Europe, with conferences and network leaders meetings. And so we got to, in 2019, to Athens. Three of us were there, and there was a network meeting. And we came back from Athens with a real good strategic plan how to go on with this building of this movement. And it was really great plan. But COVID came. And so it all collapsed, really. And it seemed that actually it was so painful that there is COVID, and as this group, we are not really meeting. We are not really doing anything, even online. But before COVID, we started doing training. We started incubator from 2017 on, and that was going on even through COVID. And later now, we can say that there were people really coming through the incubator to this whole movement. So after COVID, it was a pretty much difficult time in my ministry time also because of changes. And so that was when I got the invitation whether Budapest would be part of the first Hub City group, online learning about network building or movement building in the cities. And so I said yes, this was just what I was waiting for. And so I went to some of the old guys, the guys from the earlier fellowship. And so there were two guys who said, yes, I am in. You saw one of them, János, this morning, and then Good News Laci all the time. These two guys, I mean, we knew each other a bit, but we were not really friends. But when I told them that, okay, so guys, this is for the next 10, 15 years to see more churches planted in Budapest, they were the ones who said, okay, let's try it. So one of them, Yanni, is from this apostolic, charismatic, whatever kind of denomination, 100-year-old, and Lotzi is from Calvary Chapel, and of course I am Reformed. And so we committed for this. And so why long obedience in the same direction? City networks in Europe, as far as I can see, tend to grow slowly and stay fragile. They often begin with a spark of energy and enthusiasm, and then they go down and almost disappear, like in Amsterdam, and then they come up again. It was kind of our experience too. And I think that fragility is deeply connected to why genuine growth also tends to be slow. So it takes time and long obedience to build something that lasts. So what we are learning, or what we have been learning on this way with these three guys together, at first is relationship. I mean, we heard it, of course, from Hub City meetings all the time. It's relationally based. But it's clear that what holds it together, it's relationships. Because denominational ties don't work here. Hierarchies don't work here. It's a relationship, or rather, I would say it's spiritual friendship. We just needed the time to share our hearts with each other in the presence of Jesus, to pray together. And so there were three of us doing that, and somehow I think there was God's special grace in it. Because as I told you, we didn't really know each other, but there was some real strong bond developing among each other. And I think the only reason for that is that God was doing something, wanted to do something in the city. And so when we started it, you know, I was a kind of leader that time. Now they are the leaders, so it's so good. But I felt I need to make the next step, think about, and it was just so slow. I mean, we were thinking, so how we start building this whole thing, we got all the ideas, and I was so frustrated because it was not advancing as fast as I wanted. And now I realize why. We needed that time to deepen the relationship. We needed that time so that our hearts is changed in that process. So the way we went on with that is that after a while, we said, okay, so now we have these three people, we have some idea and vision. I will go back to this on the learning issues a bit later. And then we opened up for 8 people, with 8 leaders, and we start doing more shaping of what this network will be, Budapest Plus, with that 8. And then after 1.5 years, we are not just opened it for 25 leaders. And so now there are 25 leaders trying around the same vision, the same thing, and the goal is sometime to reach 100 leaders in this city for the same vision, how the gospel permeates the city, how there will be more churches, more disciples, more faith and work initiatives, and so on. And so the challenge at this point is, even as there are the 25 meetings, that how do we continue to grow while keeping relationships and the gospel central? Because that takes time. And so we are at this point. And there is a saying from just Attila, who was here. I think it's very important for us. The saying is that keep the egos, and the logos out of the room. It's relationships. It should be about Jesus and the gospel. So that's the relational issues. And the learning issues, I think we have to be very honest about it, that none of us, like here in Budapest, did this before. So we are learning as we are doing. Of course, we are taking ideas from other cities who are doing great work, but we need to reflect on those deeply, and we need to contextualize them, because our situation is not the same situation. I think sometimes that basically what's happening in these cities, it's a kind of thinking about a new kind of ecclesiology, a new way of being the church together in and for the city. And it takes time, it takes years, it takes decades. And I think there are points when there is some light coming in. For 3 of us, we were thinking about, so we are building the city-to-city network here. And at one point, we just realized a new structure that we said City to City Budapest is our team. We have their coaching and training and prayer and faith and work and so on. But we are not inviting other leaders to the City to City. Why should they have that hat on their head? And then we realized we will do something under the name of Budapest Plus, where there is the collaboration, and one player is City to City Budapest, but there are other ministries, other churches in that collaboration. And when we got that idea, which is just a simple idea, it gave us so much energy on how to go on. And I think this is what I mean by learning on the way. And even now, who knows what's coming? Exactly, I think none of us really knows how we'll go on. So, spiritual friendship, prayer, and waiting for the Lord in some ways. Another image we use, I think it's very helpful for us, is that somehow we are waiting for a wave, like the surfer, or we are being carried by the wave. We don't create it. What we are doing is far beyond our own ability. There is this utter dependence on God, who can send the wave. Only He can do that. And honestly, that's also a relief. Since what we are working on, we can't make it happen ourselves. There is no way. So in some ways, there is no so much pressure for success. And that's good. We can celebrate that. So let me close. I've said it's fragile. It can come up, and very easily it can disappear. I've shown you why and how it is slow. But let me end with a challenge. If you have started building a local city network, or if you are thinking about it, if you started it, it doesn't seem to grow. Nothing really happens. You are just sitting there praying, thinking. Or even if you started it and it collapsed, don't give up. I think that's the message. Don't give up. Because if you give up, it means that something has been mistaken in your heart about the call. This is not a platform for advancement. This is not a trendy ministry opportunity. If you want to be trendy, go with City to City and start using words like gospel, collaboration, and movement. This is not that. You need to check your heart. If you give up easily, ask yourself, am I pursuing God's vision for my city because it's burdened on my heart, in my prayers probably? Or this is just about my success, and if it's not working, I do something else. If you are called by the Lord, if the desire for a gospel movement in your city is burning in your heart, let me say it again. If the desire for a gospel movement in your city is burning in your heart, then press on. Then keep building, keep praying. Because what God calls us to is not speed, it's not fast success, but it's long obedience into the same direction. Be blessed. Thank you.